The Israeli Mossad HaMossad Lemodi'in, Ulei Tafkidim Meyuhadim, the Institute for Intelligence and Special Operations, has operated in the shadows of the world's most dangerous conflicts for over 70 years. Smaller than the CIA, deadlier than most armies, and almost completely invisible. Level 1. The candidate. You're sitting in a room with no windows. Fluorescent light hums overhead. Across the table, a man in a plain shirt studies you like he's reading a language you don't know exists. He hasn't introduced himself. He never will. You applied to a government administrative position 3 months ago. You thought it was a bureaucratic role. You were wrong. This is called a talent spotting interview, a quiet, careful conversation designed not to test what you know, but what you are. The Mossad doesn't advertise, it watches. Academic performance, psychological profiles, military service records, social behavior, foreign language ability, emotional control. They've been reading your file for longer than you've been in this room. Most people never make it here. Some people make it here and leave within 10 minutes. The man across from you asks you a question that seems ordinary. Your answer will determine the next decade of your life. You don't know that yet. You answer honestly. He writes something down. He closes the folder. He tells you they'll be in touch. You walk out into the sunlight and feel nothing unusual. That is exactly what they're counting on. The weeks that follow are filled with silence. No call, no letter. You wonder if it was real. And then, one morning, your phone buzzes. A number you don't recognize. A voice you've never heard. A single instruction. You follow it. Because something in your gut already knows this is not the kind of call you decline. Level 2. The trainee. Mossad cadet. The training facility doesn't look like what you imagined. No barbed wire perimeter. No soldiers with rifles at the gate. It looks like a university campus outside Tel Aviv, which is exactly the point. But inside these buildings, they are systematically dismantling you, not your body, your assumptions. The first week is psychological endurance. You are deprived of sleep at irregular intervals. You are given tasks with no clear instructions and watched to see how you handle ambiguity. You are placed in social scenarios where you're expected to read people without being told what you're reading for. The instructors don't explain what's being evaluated. The evaluation is constant. Your handlers tell you nothing and watch everything. You learn that the most dangerous thing in intelligence work is certainty. The moment you think you know what's happening, you've already fallen behind. You study Arabic, Farsi, operational security, how to follow someone through a crowded market without making eye contact once, how to remember a conversation word for word after 2 hours, how to lie fluently without the micro-expressions that betray amateurs. You are building a second self, layered over the first. The hardest part isn't learning the skills. It's realizing how much of your natural behavior made you readable, expressive, human, all the things that now have to go underground. What they're building inside of you isn't a soldier. It's something quieter and far more dangerous. And you haven't even been given an assignment yet. Level 3. The Katsa. You land in a European city. Vienna, Brussels, maybe Athens. You never say which one, even to yourself in a journal you're not allowed to keep. You have a cover identity, a name, a profession, a history you've rehearsed until it feels like memory. You are a trade consultant. You have business cards. You have a LinkedIn profile that was built 18 months ago by people you've never met. The legend, they call it. Your legend is your armor and your cage simultaneously. Your job as a Katsa, a field case officer, is to recruit human intelligence sources, not to steal documents, not to hack systems, to find human beings with access to information and turn them into assets. This is the heart of Mossad's philosophy. Human intelligence. Human. You're not mining data, you're mining people. You identify a target. An Iranian nuclear ministry official attending a conference, a weapons manufacturer's logistics coordinator, a diplomat whose gambling debts make him structurally vulnerable. You study them for weeks before they ever see your face. You know where they eat breakfast. You know their children's names. You know what embarrasses them at 2 a.m. When the room is dark and the silence is loud, the first approach, what the Mossad calls the pitch, is not a confrontation. It's a seduction. a slow, patient construction of trust built across weeks of seemingly accidental meetings. You are patient in a way most people can't sustain, because impatience is a luxury of people who don't understand what's actually at stake. The loneliness is something nobody briefed you on. You can't call home with details. Your relationships outside the service are shallow by design. You are surrounded by people and completely alone in a way that has no adequate language. You close your first asset. You transmit the intelligence through channels you never see the end of. Somewhere in Tel Aviv, a decision gets made because of information that passed through your hands. You will never know what decision. You will never know what it prevented or caused. And that ambiguity, that permanent, structural ambiguity, is something you learn to carry like weight. You stop noticing only because you carry it every single day. Level 4. The Combatant, Operational Intelligence Officer. Assignments change. They come faster. The targets are no longer diplomats at conferences. The targets are harder men in darker rooms. You are moved into an operational unit. The work shifts from intelligence collection to intelligence enabling, meaning the information you gather now directly feeds actions, kinetic actions, things with consequences measured in lives. You're not pulling triggers, but you are providing the architecture for people who do. You run surveillance on a suspected Hezbollah procurement network in South America. You spend 3 weeks in a city where no one knows your real name, eating at the same cafe every morning, watching who walks past and who slows down and who looks twice. You send reports encrypted into digital signals that travel to Tel Aviv in milliseconds. You start to understand the machinery, how a piece of intelligence about a financial transfer can, 6 steps later, result in something being intercepted at sea. How a conversation you recorded in a Hamburg hotel room can echo into a weapons shipment that never arrives. You become comfortable in airports. You become a student of normalcy because the best cover is behavior so ordinary it creates no friction in anyone's mind. But the stress manifests in the body, in the jaw, clenched at night, in the slight, persistent headache behind your left eye that no doctor you'd actually visit can explain. You are operating in environments where being discovered doesn't mean embarrassment. It means you don't come home. That reality sits underneath every interaction, every smile, every handshake, every cup of coffee ordered in a language you speak with no accent because you trained for 3 years to remove it. The world looks different at this level. You stop seeing cities as places. You see them as operational environments. You stop seeing people as strangers. You see them as potential assets, potential threats, or background. Everything has been filtered through mission relevance. You don't know yet whether that filter is something you can ever remove. Level 5. The Neviat and Kidon tier. There are units within Mossad that are not publicly acknowledged in any official document. You know about them now. You are adjacent to them. The Neviat are the specialists in physical penetration break-ins, surveillance installations, placing listening devices in rooms where conversations change history. They move through buildings like they were born inside the walls. The Kidon, a word meaning bayonet in Hebrew, is the Mossad's most classified operational group. Direct action. The people they send when there is no diplomatic solution, no surveillance option, no asset who can reach the target. You are not Kidon, but you work in the same operational layer. You provide ground truth. You confirm locations. You establish patterns of life on targets whose names you receive on encrypted dossiers that self-destruct from your device within 60 seconds of reading. You know what these operations are. You know what happens after you submit your report. There is a line you crossed somewhere in the last 3 years that you cannot precisely locate in memory, but you know it exists. Somewhere between the first interview in that windowless room and this moment, standing on a street in a Middle Eastern city that you cannot name in any document, you became someone whose moral architecture was rebuilt around mission necessity rather than conventional ethics. That is not a complaint, it is an observation. And the fact that you can make it with this kind of calm detachment tells you more about what this work has done to you than any psychological evaluation ever could. Level 6. The Department Head, Keshet, Division Commander. You come home. Not entirely, and not forever, but you come back to Tel Aviv, and you take a desk, not a bureaucrat's desk, a commander's desk. You now run a division. Sumit handles agent-running networks. Keshet handles technological intelligence. Either way, you are now the person making the decisions that used to be made above you. You read the files on people like the person you used to be. You authorize operations. You weigh risk against intelligence, value against political consequences, against human cost. That last variable, human cost, is not abstract anymore. You have seen what operations look like from the ground. You know what you're authorizing when you sign. The weight of that knowledge sits differently than anything that came before. You sit in meetings with senior government officials. You brief the defense minister. You understand now that Mossad does not operate as a rogue agency. It operates as a precise instrument of state policy, which means the operations you run are connected to decisions made at the highest levels of Israeli strategic thinking. That realization restructures everything you thought you understood about intelligence work. It was never just about information. It was always about power, who shapes the environment, who sees what others cannot, who moves first because they know what's coming before it arrives. Your people in the field trust you. Some of them don't know your real name. Some of them never will. You carry them with you in a way that's difficult to explain to anyone outside this world. They are operating alone in hostile cities because you sent them there. Level 7. The Ramsad, Director of Mossad. The title is Ramsad, Rosh HaMossad, Head of the Institute. There have been fewer than 15 people who have held this position since the organization was founded in 1949 under Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion. Now it is you. You are briefed daily by every division. You brief the Prime Minister directly. You have access to intelligence streams that would reshape how most people understand geopolitics, history, and the fundamental structure of international power. You know things about allied governments that their own citizens will never know. You know things about adversarial governments that their own leadership doesn't know you know. The information asymmetry at this level is dizzying. The world looks completely different when you can see where the strings actually connect. The decisions you make, the operations you authorize, the assets you protect, the targets you designate, carry consequences that ripple outward in ways you can only partially trace. A Mossad operation in the 1970s killed 11 people across 11 countries in response to the Munich massacre. An operation in the 1980s brought a nuclear whistleblower from Rome to Israel in a vessel crossing the Mediterranean. Operations in the 2000s and 2010s, attributed but never officially confirmed, struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear program without a single missile being fired from Israeli soil. This is the inheritance you are now custodian of. The doctrine is simple. Even if the execution never is, reach anywhere, see everything, act when necessary, leave no fingerprints that matter. And the recruiter who studied you across that table in a windowless room all those years ago, the one who never gave you his name, he saw all of this in you before you knew any of it was possible. The question is, what did you give up to become it? And what would you change if the honest answer is nothing at all?